Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Well, I guess Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I would like to call this listening session for September 25th, 2017 to order, and thank you all for being here. The board has set aside an hour and a half this evening to hear comments on the proposal to open two new middle schools at Harriet Tubman and Roseway Heights. Staff members in the auditorium have public comment sign-up sheets that you should complete and turn at the secretary's desk. Since there are many who wish to testify, I'm requesting that you please limit your comments to 2 minutes. And since we're starting a little bit late, we will go, instead of going till 7:30, we'll go to 7:45. Public feedback is very important to us. Additional public comment will be accepted at future listening sessions in October. The board will take everything into consideration before voting on the middle school proposal. We have three board members who are, and our student rep who are traveling. This is being video recorded and they'll have access to all your comments. In addition to any of the written comments that are submitted will be forwarded to all the board members. We have interpreters with us tonight, and I'd like to invite them up at this time to introduce themselves and indicate where they will be located in the room. Childcare is also available.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Lucía Cabrejo, soy intérprete en español. Yo voy a estar sentada allá al fondo si me necesitan. Gracias.
Здравствуйте, я русская переводчица. Если вы нуждаетесь в переводе, то вы можете меня найти там сзади.
halka idin joogo qof af Soomaali ku hadlaya haddii Soomaali rabtid halkaa igu kaalay.
我是 Ken， 我是中文翻译。就站在后面，假如有需要的，请到后面找我，可以帮你。
Xin chào, mình nói tiếng Việt. Nếu như cần sự giúp đỡ tiếng Việt, vui lòng ra bên phía bên phải. Cảm ơn.
Thank you. I'm next going to introduce the chair of the Enrollment and Transfer Committee, Scott Bailey, and he's going to have a short introduction, and then I'm going to share some of our instructions for public comment, and then we'll get going for the evening. So, Director Bailey.
Great, thanks, Julia. Hey, thank you all for coming out here. This is great. A couple of things just to remind you why, how did we get into this mess again? What we're trying to do here is address two historic inequities. About 10 years ago, PPS shifted a number of schools primarily in Northeast, but also Southeast Portland, from K-5 and middle schools to K-8s. And it was actually immediately almost apparent that things weren't working very well in a lot of those K-8s. So we're trying to undo that now. And that's, getting the genie back in the bottle is never as easy as letting the genie out. Secondly, we haven't had an ongoing program for adjusting our boundaries to ensure that every school has a robust population that fits the size of the school building. And plus, we've got all these school buildings that are of different shapes and sizes, and different locations, and people move. So that's a challenge as well. So we're also, I wish, and I've been involved with DBRAC before I was elected to the board and advocating around this issue for 7 years now. I wish we were at a district-wide balancing where we were redrawing all boundaries. We are not there right now, and it is what it is. But what we can do right now is do whatever we can to make sure that we have two middle schools open up in September. And I'm personally determined to see that, and I think that's true of our entire board. It's important to note that who's involved in this move, the two middle schools, it's 1,300 total enrollment. The K-5s that we're recreating, that's 3,600 kids, something like that. We're talking about roughly 5,000 children moving, making shifts so that they get a better education. 5,000 children. That's more than 10% of our entire district. So I think we should keep that in mind, that, you know, that's where we're going here. And we're trying to do that the best way possible. And that's a challenge. So we asked staff to put together a proposal. They put together a proposal that tried to balance a lot of things that we asked them to do. And now what we've been asking people to do is to come help us make that the best possible proposal for all children in the district. Realizing that within this area, there are constraints. It's a system. If you push here, you plop out here, that there are ramifications. And it's all well and good to say, don't do this, but recognize that if we don't do this, it has implications for the rest of the system. And they gave me a bunch of talking points, but I think I've talked enough. So let's, coming up, 2 more listening sessions, one October 2nd at Madison High School, one October 5th at Sabin, currently K-8. So invite you to keep coming, keep listening, keep helping us make this a better proposal going forward. It's a real challenge, and there's equity issues all over the map on this. So I think I'll stop there, and let's time's a waste, and let's get moving.
Just want to provide some brief comments.
Oh yeah, Julia's going to.
The rules of the road. Thank you, Director Bailey. So our responsibility as a board lies in actively listening and reflecting your thoughts and opinions of others. The board will not respond to any comments or questions at this time, but we will follow up on various issues that are raised tonight. Guidelines for public input emphasize respect and consideration when referring to board members, staff, and other presenters. You have a total of 2 minutes to share your comments. Please begin by stating your name and spelling your last name for the record. And I apologize in advance because 3 minutes is usually our standard length, and I know a lot of people time it right to the second. So we apologize. We just want to hear from as many people as possible tonight. If you have something longer you want to say, please send it to us by email, and we'll read it. During the first minute of your testimony, a green light will appear. When you have 1 minute remaining, a yellow light will go on, and when your time is up, the red light will go on and a buzzer will sound. We'll respectfully ask that you conclude your comments at that time. We really appreciate your input, and thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. With that, Ms. Hewson, do you want to start the...
Sure. Our first 2 speakers, Danny Ledesma and Kimberly Branham.
And again, we're going the school community by school community rotation like we did at Madison a couple of weeks ago.
Hi. You wanna go first? Sure. Okay. Chair Edwards, directors. For the record, I'm Kimberly Branham, B-R-A-N-A-M. I'm the executive director of Prosper Portland, which is formerly known as the Portland Development Commission. Prosper Portland and Portland Public Schools have a long history of collaboration, and today we share a joint commitment to advancing racial equity and doing excellent work. Each of our organization's success is deeply impacted by the others. Prosper Portland's work to build a more equitable economy will not be achievable without a strong system of local public schools that serve all children and the dynamic employees and entrepreneurs that you develop. Similarly, our schools need the engaged employers, strong communities, and families in a healthy local economy. So, as the institutional partner, I am here to applaud you for your ongoing efforts to put racial equity at the forefront as you make key decisions like those you are considering this evening. Moreover, as the head of an organization that has historically played a role in gentrifying communities, sometimes intentionally, other times unintentionally, I'm here to let you know that we stand with you as you grapple with how to overcome the legacy of practices and policies that have led to inequitable outcomes. Today at Prosper Portland, the central question that we ask ourselves is who benefits and who would be burdened by any decision that we make. So accordingly, alongside with the Portland Housing Bureau, we have developed a strategy in North and Northeast Portland that prioritizes people of color and specifically African Americans in our programming and investments there. In the last year, 100% of the grant resources invested have gone to people of color or organizations that are culturally responsive. But supporting a thriving, inclusive community with diverse families in Northeast and those who will be returning because of the preference policy will require all of us as institutions to act in concert, to listen to community voices and with a racial equity lens. So we're here really to encourage you.
Wrap up.
Yep, we're here to encourage you to keep Kairos in Humboldt and to ensure that African American families who have faced displacement have an opportunity to attend culturally supportive schools such as Boise, Elliott, Kairos, and Jefferson, and Tubman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Brim Edwards, directors, my name's Danny Ledesma, and my last name is Ledezma. I'm the interim executive director of the Coalition of Communities of Color. We are an alliance of over 18 culturally specific community-based organizations representing communities of color. We work on collective racial justice efforts to improve outcomes for communities of color through policy analysis and advocacy, community-based participatory research, and leadership development in communities of color. And on behalf of the coalition, I'm here today to thank you for taking the time and for listening, but also to urge you to continue to partner with Kairos PDX in their current location at the Humboldt School. For our members and for our organization, this is an equity issue. As you all know, the Humboldt School is the location is important, and we can't take that out of context. As Director Branham will tell you, and as our folks at the city know, is that this location is in the heart of where our city has seen some of the worst displacement. African Americans in North and Northeast and Interstate Corridor have reduced, their population has been reduced by over 4,000 members of the community since 2000 to 2014. And over the last 3 years, we know that that's only been exacerbated by high rents, by home ownership prices, and the current economic climate that we're in, and the real estate conditions that are happening. And so while this may seem very overwhelming to you, you do have some power in the situation. You are the current landlords at the Humboldt School, and you can make your decisions using an equity lens. And we ask you to think about the opportunities that Kairos PDX brings to the students that they're serving. These are predominantly African American students, and as you well know, there's a significant opportunity gap for African American students at PPS. We would want you to not look at Kairos or the organization as any other type of partner, but to really look through an equity lens and consider continuing your partnership with them at that location.
Thank you.
Next, we have Leif Olson and Thomas Lanham.
Hello, I'm Leif Olsen, Olsen, from Access Academy. I'm in 7th grade. And Access is home to 350 students, but at Rose City Park with Beverly Cleary, it does not have room to grow. But there's more children who need access. And there's a great learning community where students who need advanced learning can learn together. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Lanham, Lannom. First, I want to speak about the process, and then I want to speak about leadership. Your staff unveiled the current plan, a plan that impacts tens of thousands of people in Portland 2 weeks ago. And they are saying you must make a final decision in the next 3 weeks. That's 5 weeks, and it's not reasonable, and it's not good public process. Not a single not a single preschool family in my neighborhood, and these are families with no grandfathering and therefore immediately impacted by the changes being proposed, received any notice. None of them had any opportunity to help develop the proposal or voice concerns until now, when it seems this is a fully baked and on a fast track. So you have violated your own board directives around the process. Second, leadership. The only thing about this proposal that seems to be sure, that the board seems to be sure about, is that we're going to do it again soon. So why aren't we doing it now in the first place? And taking a step back, why are we not hearing about a vision to uplift all of our schools with a real equity lever? A staffing model that focuses on needs and outcomes rather than head counts. I assume it's because it would cost more money. So look at this room. We've got red shirts, we've got green shirts, we've got parents pitted against each other. And for what? For higher enrollment figures that apparently drive the funding model. Why aren't we looking at solutions that everyone here can rally behind? There are hundreds of people sitting behind me who would gladly knock on doors and sign ballot measures and get the word out for more funding. And Portlanders have shown time and time again that if you ask, they will dig into their pockets. The Multnomah County ITAX in 2003, Director Brim Edwards, I know you know about that because you were a leader in that at that time. Measure 97 and 26 failed statewide, but it passed handsomely here in Multnomah County. The arts tax, the children's levy, school bonds. Portlanders have really never said no to the schools. So it takes great courage to sit on a school board, and you are all to be commended for it. But what we're asking for now is real change and real leadership, and this current plan is neither. Thank you.
Ms. Houston, before you call up the next speakers, this is a notice for the parents who have their children in childcare. If you don't want your kids to have pizza, please go upstairs. Because I have a feeling they're about ready to be served pizza, but I was asked to make that announcement. So if that's an issue for any of your children that are upstairs, please go upstairs. Sorry.
Our next two speakers are Brett Horner and Brian Steelman.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Brett Horner. The last name is Horner. I'm here as a parent of an 8th grader at Beaumont Middle School and a son who will be entering kindergarten in just a few years. We appreciate what you're attempting to do here. We believe every child should have a robust middle school experience, and that is a key goal in this. We want every child to have that experience. We agree with the goals and principles that you have set forth in your documents, but are concerned that two factors have been left out. One is geographic common sense and safety. If this proposal is not modified, our son and others in his neighborhood, instead of walking or biking a half mile to their middle school, will be going 3 miles away to a new middle school and have to cross at least 5 busy streets unless bused or driven. Fremont, 15th, MLK, Vancouver, and Russell, which is also designated as a PBOT designated freight route. So street crossings are one safety issue, but we and others in our neighborhood are concerned about another even more critical health and safety issue at the Tubman location, and that is its proximity to Interstate 5. The Tubman campus is about 48 feet from the freeway pavement and will be even closer when ODOT widens the stretch of I-5 here. There are documented health issues with freeway proximity, with harmful, even more harmful effects for children. California has banned schools closer than 500 feet to a freeway, and so we would like assurances from Portland Public Schools that operating a school at Tubman will be a healthy school, and how freeway and freeway expansion impacts will be addressed. This should be a concern of all students being planned to be sent to Tubman, regardless of elementary feeder school. Perhaps there is a better location for up to 1,200 middle schoolers. please provide this health data, and please let us continue to attend Beaumont Middle School. We are very happy with Beaumont, and we consider it our community school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Steelman, Steelman. I am going to be short and sweet here. My family is very excited about the reopening of Tubman as a middle school for our future middle schooler who's an Irvington second grader, and for all the students that will be going to Tubman. We feel like there is a lot of opportunity in this change, and we hope that that PPS brings their A game on making this change happen. I've met the principal for Tubman, Natasha Butler, and she's clearly bringing spirit and focus to this new opportunity for all of us. I've heard some parents express frustration about their kids crossing busy streets to get to Tubman. In my opinion, this is an incredibly weak argument as a reason to not open Tubman as a middle school, as it does not take equity or the big picture of the greater good into account. I do think that the city of Portland can do things to the crosswalks that make MLK safer to cross. I've seen crosswalks in other parts of the city that have lights and whatnot, and I hope that PPS affects those change, which will benefit everyone. But crossing a busy street cannot be seen as a reason for not opening a school or keeping our students from engaging in an incredible opportunity that Tubman can provide. I would also ask that the preference policy continues and increases. I also want to mention that Cairo should undoubtedly stay at Humboldt. I have a business that supports Kairos. I have seen what goes on there and the spirit, and it deserves and needs a long-term and stable home, and it should be at Humboldt. There's no doubt about it. I would recommend to the board that this is a very easy decision if you're looking at it through a humanity and equity lens rather than just logistics.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lisa Morea and Shamika Owens.
I guess we'll go out of turn. Shamika Owens, last name Owens, Owens, and I actually come, well, I'm the new PTA president at Dr. Martin Luther King, K-8, formerly known as King, because we do plan to reclaim the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I have a list of talking points because we tried to pool the entire community before we knew that there were going to be more talking sessions. We literally went on Facebook, website, everything, tried to pull folks who we knew could not be here. So I'm going to riddle off some submissions from other parents and try to get as much in as possible. And if I have time, then I'll put in 2 cents. We need both MLK Junior and Tubman to have feeder patterns and boundaries that create appropriately sized schools that will result in robust enrollment and in turn full programming. Our kids need appropriate programming now, and the changes should not be delayed. Kids in our cluster at under-enrolled K-8s have waited long enough for equitable programming. A sidebar, another parent also explained that she had a child who was in the 3rd grade being promised this middle school, and now they're in the 7th grade. So if it doesn't happen, it's never going to happen for them. Grandfathering cannot be allowed to prevent equitable programming to be established for 2018-19 school year. There needs to be a plan to deal with the reality that enrollment may increase slowly. We can't delay opening middle school any longer. It's not fair or equitable for the community. Equality is identified as priority for PPS and in vulnerable communities where it has experienced decades of institutional racism that may not have large parent-based organizations or mobilization. It should be PPS and the board's priority to ensure schools such as MLK are sustainable and viable in the future before they start making these changes. The board should not be making decisions based on percentages of parents present at meetings or who can yell the loudest. If a school does not have dozens and hundreds of parents presenting at meetings, the board should be the voice for those underrepresented.
So
In
can-
addition,
Can I ask you to, one more sentence, and then you can submit the rest of the comments and we'll read
Okay.
them? If
can do.
Thank you.
And
I
please
was
have
given-
folks come to Tubman. Or I mean to Saban for our next session. Thank you, sorry.
Yes, I was given this position. My name is Genta Shaw, Gente Shaw, for the record. PPS board members, I would like to thank each of you for dedicating your time and service to our students and families. I'm a mother of two beautiful, equally intelligent girls. My daughter Chloe, a first grader, one of 125 leaders at Kairos PDX. Before attending Kairos, she attended a private school. One evening, during our drive home, she curiously asked me, "Mommy, are you black? Is Daddy white? So what am I?" She was 3 years old. My husband and I realized then that it was vital for us to find a school here in Portland that not only challenged Chloe academically, but also one that practices equality for all and celebrates diversity among its staff and students. We found Kairos. Our school's sole purpose is to change the narrative. In partnership with Kairos PDX, PPS board members are assisting us in doing just that. To keep Kairos in the historical Hummel Elementary School will be an undeniable charge forward to educational equity for all PPS students. And understand bluntly, to dismiss Kairos from Humboldt without an alternative home will perpetuate PPS' dark narrative of educational inequality, undermine and reject Kairos' work and community value, displace and fail our PPS students and families, and ultimately forfeit your opportunity to restore the albino community that has been pillaged by racism and gentrification. In closing, I responded to my daughter with her truth. She is black, she is white, she is important, and she is loved. Please make your commitment to educational equality consistent for all PPS students, regardless of his or her race or socioeconomic status. If not now, when?
Next, we have Jen Morrissey and Megan Newell Ching.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Morrissey, Morrissey. I'm a parent of 3 in Northeast Portland and an immigration attorney serving communities in the immigrant population, including Dreamers. So in my view, this proposal doesn't reflect the core principles of process and transparency that are so valued by Portlanders. When I hear board members saying, this is a done deal, this is gonna happen, I wonder why we've been invited here to speak. This process contravenes board policy and administrative directives, which are designed to provide consistency and transparency in establishing stable and workable school boundaries. This is an urban planning issue, and I am perplexed why the board is not using professional urban planners who have robust modeling systems that, to my knowledge, PPS does not have. Your current proposal leaves so many communities unhappy that they are attempting to crowdsource solutions for you online. This is not a recipe for success. I believe that the public will respond enthusiastically to a recommendation that covers the East Side with a data-driven approach. Our children are not numbers to be shuffled as part of a temporary fix. They deserve your most concerted effort. This is not it.
My name is Megan Newell Ching. It's Newell-Ching. I'm a parent of 2 children at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary and K-8 currently, and also a leader in our PTA there, so I also have some comments that I will read from parents and other folks from the school community that were submitted. If the proposed boundary shift goes through, the full impact won't be realized for 5 or 6 more years. Do you have a plan to support a robust pre-K through 5 program at Martin Luther King Jr. in the meantime. Will the staffing model shift to account for the fact that our Mandarin program and English only side have separate staffing needs and cannot be staffed based on a head count? How can we together work to improve walkability across Martin Luther King Jr. for families on either side traveling to Tubman? We hope to see a robust Tubman. I, too, am a parent who's very excited for the middle school at Tubman. I want my kids to go there, and I want it to be a great school for all of our students. Is there a long-term facilities plan for Harriet Tubman to address the environmental and educational concerns of the facility in its current state, including a roof? Finally, I'm here not just as a member of my school community, but as a member of the Portland community, and I would echo some of the statements from other parents and community members saying I encourage you to make these decisions with the equity lens. I want all of our schools to thrive. That's the most important thing for me and for my children, is that we live in a community where there's a robust educational option for every student. Thank you.
Next, we have Martha Ruddle and Angela Overfield.
Hi, my name is Martha Ruddle. The last name is spelled R-U-T-T-L-E. I'm the mother of a student at Access Academy, and to clarify for everyone here, because I know everyone might not be familiar with us, we are not a charter school like Village, Trillium, or Emerson, to name a few. We're not a focus school like Creative Science, Winter Haven, or Da Vinci. We're a special program of the district created to meet the needs of students who are not being served by their current schools. Students qualify for access by scoring in the 99th percentile on nationally normed standardized tests, and by providing clear evidence that their current school placement isn't meeting their needs. I sought out access for my daughter when her neighborhood school stated that they could not meet her academic needs. Our students are no more special and do not have greater gifts than other students. However, they do learn at rates and levels that most schools cannot accommodate. That is why Access exists, to provide these students with the education they need. Access serves the entire school district, from St. John's to Skyline to Multnomah. Because we are not a neighborhood school, we do not lay claim to a particular building. At this time, we are co-located at Rose City Park with parts of the Beverly Cleary community. But as a program that serves all of PPS, we are continuing to advocate, as we have been for years, for a building that is centrally located. A central location is essential for our students and families, many of whom rely on PPS buses. Some students already travel more than an hour each way. We are asking the district once again to provide our program with a central location so that we can be as accessible as possible to as many PPS families as possible. We are also continuing to advocate for room to admit more students to our program. This enrollment balancing process has been going on for years, and many of us have followed it closely the whole time. We understand what an intricate process it is, how an adjustment to one school building, as Director Bailey mentioned, impacts so many others. And we also know that every year, students are waitlisted for access. These children have demonstrated that their needs are not being met in their current schools, and they deserve to be able to attend the very school that was created to meet their needs.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angela Querfeld. It's Q-U-E-R, F as in Frank, E-L-D. Thank you all very much for the time that you're taking to consider our voices during this challenging process. I know it's incredibly time-consuming and that there will never be an outcome that will make every single person happy. As a resident of the Boise Elliott neighborhood for the past 12 years, I have watched rampant gentrification change the fabric of my community, which of course was already a hotbed of racial discord long before I moved in. I'm thrilled to know that the district is leading with equity as one of its guiding principles, and that you are here to help try to correct some historic inequities. I am 100% in support of opening Tubman as a middle school, not because I'm hoping that we can make up for damages done in the past, but because I firmly believe that the only way to end racism and promote equity for all is to address the early learning of all of our children and to provide the same access to quality programs for everyone regardless of which neighborhood you live in. However, there is one portion of the proposal that is in front of you right now that is in complete contradiction to this goal. That is moving the Kairos Elementary out of Humboldt Elementary School. Kairos is currently located there and is also a school that, unlike other proposed uses for the school, would be a feeder school for the Tubman Middle School. Today, I'm here to stand with Kairos PDX and ask that you please amend the staff proposal to allow Kairos to stay at Humboldt. As the white parent of a child in this neighborhood, I can honestly tell you that the reasons you outlined for opening Tubman as a middle school are precisely why we chose Kairos as our neighborhood school. At Kairos, the community of educators, leaders, parents, and children are all living and breathing what everyone in this room says we are looking to do. In just its 4th year of operations, Kairos is creating a space that reinforces our belief that public schools are vital to the ecosystem of the educational landscape, and they are demonstrating that this notion can lead to equitable outcomes
Can you
by building better
wrap up,
students
please?
and better people. Thank you.
Next, we have Chris Gwynn and Michelle Koenig North.
Thank you, PPS board members. My name is Chris Gwynn III. Gwynn is spelled G-U-I-N-N III. And I am a 52-year-old lifetime resident of Northeast Portland and also a business owner of 2 businesses on MLK Junior Boulevard. One is called Dwell Realty, and the other is right next door, Elevated Coffee. So I want to talk a little bit about the proposed displacement of Kairos School. Kairos has always had the support of my business and family by merits of money and time. I'm honored to say I was recently selected to the board of directors and look forward to being involved with the school at this point from an inside looking out perspective. So it's clear that I support the mission of the school and its quest to close the racial achievement gap among African American students and providing a wholesome and positive atmosphere for our children. When I heard that Kairos would occupy the abandoned Humboldt School last year, I thought to myself, this seemed like a perfect location, and based on its proximity to the previous location, it felt like the Humboldt Elementary and its historic ties to what was once a very vibrant black community. We all know the recent history of the location. In 2012, Humboldt was allowed to, what I consider, die on the vine and close due to the lack of interest and neglect of many of the new families that moved into the neighborhood at what had once been a school that served a predominantly black student body. Once closed, many children of color became dispersed and displaced until Kairos came to call it home again. And in my opinion, that Kairos and Humboldt create a union that was once lost due to the forces of gentrification in North and Northeast Portland. And we now have a grand opportunity, in my opinion, to resurrect what was part of Portland's history that was lost. It seems like displacing our students and families from an area that once again would equate to yet another black eye administered to the black community. Some are portraying the upcoming board's decision and its outcome as a Kairos First Access Academy thing, but not the way Kairos views it. Understanding the Access community members are not in full accord, that's my understanding, and Humboldt would serve the needs of their needs in both locations and size. So I heard sometimes some people would say that they would not.
Can you wrap up, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll be quick here. So some possible solutions to make sure every effort is made to find a home for Access, to stop looking for Humboldt as a quick fix to the problem, and look into other opportunities for where Access Academy may be able to join with another school. I appreciate you for indulging me in my time here and to keep Kairos at Humboldt.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Michelle Koenig North. Last name is Kunec-North. First, I don't envy the task in front of you, and I support any efforts that you can make to provide quality education to all of our children. But I'm here today to comment on how this information is being shared with the community and to implore you to do better. I understand that parents of current students have received regular information about the proposals and process, but I'm here to speak about the experience of those of us who do not. I'm here as a mother of 2 future PPS students. I'm also here as a well-educated, incredibly fortunate, English-speaking career bureaucrat. I've worked in government for over a decade. I can understand government jargon, acronyms. I'm very familiar with bureaucratic websites. And not only was I not notified about these changes, which maybe is reasonable, but I'm unable to find any information about these boundary changes, both what has been proposed or what is approved on your website. I live in Beverly Cleary, and I recently heard a rumor that boundary changes were being considered. It took me about an hour searching and searching across the website to finally find this information on a relatively dense multi-proposal page with the downloadable report, Roseway Heights and Tubman Middle Schools. It's on page 36 of 45 pages. Maybe there's an easier way to find this. I couldn't come across it. So, as I mentioned, I'm a parent of 2 young children. 1 of every 8 households in Portland has a child under 6. Think about that. That's at least 1 of every family on your block. These families are not hearing about this process through their local school. The changes you're considering now will impact them whether they know it or not, as it will my family. We all deserve accessible, clear, and up-to-date information about these changes. And if I can't find it, I can't imagine how you can expect or let alone guarantee that future PPS families across Portland can have any voice in this process. Thank you.
Next, we have Heather Penny and Jim Holstein.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Heather Penny, and I'm a parent of a 2- and 6-year-old with 1 child in PPS. Prior to a few weeks ago, I hadn't been paying attention to boundary change issues because my child was in an unaffected school that was performing well. I, like many Portlanders, didn't know about the struggles PPS is up against with low funds and space constraints. I learned by a flyer on my door that we are in a tiny group of 3 or 4 families per year that will be moved to new schools. We already started in grade school so our daughter can finish in place, but would then transfer away from over 90% of her classmates into a new middle school and high school. Along with being concerned about having a supportive peer community in place at a sensitive age, I'm concerned about our 2-parent working family holding it all together with inability to walk to middle school and schools farther away from our workplaces, and less support from families who have known our kids since kindergarten. I'm also acutely aware of the problems that need fixing and have seen many parents speak up for what is best for their kids. Sadly, it seems like parents have become pitted against each other for school space, adequate student numbers, keeping neighborhoods together, and safe school buildings. We all want the best for our kids. And the proposed plan needs continued work. There are a number of issues that should be worked through, including access, who will lack space for growth, Kairos, who will lose space for a successful program, and kids who are slivered off from their cohorts at various stages in their education. In addition, our teachers are showing up wanting contracts and smaller class sizes, so they don't seem too thrilled either with the status quo. I suggest that we quickly do a few emergency measures to solve the most urgent problems while trying to negatively impact the fewest students. Then we should take our time over the next year with our new superintendent to involve the larger community and come up with a more permanent fix. We need to involve parents of kids who are not immediately impacted and the community at large to fight for an appropriate tax and funding solution that can actually solve these problems. We should involve community partners like the Concordia and Fabian example. We should fight for more volunteers.
Please, thank you.
And community mentors. We need to realize that a one-size solution won't work for all. Our kids are worth it. Let's take the time to do this right and give our kids the education they deserve. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Holstein, Holstein. I have an 8th grader at Roseway Heights and a 5th grader at Jason Lee. I was going to talk about my kids' experience to highlight the disparity between K-8s and middle schools, but I think that's self-evident at this point, and I don't really want to talk that long. So I'll get to my main points. Now that the district is poised to convert our schools to K-8s and middle schools, and things are getting down to the details, a lot of difficult decisions need to be made, which will impact a lot of kids and families, and no, not everyone is going to be happy about it. What I want to stress is that doing nothing and maintaining the status quo is more harmful than any other decision you end up making. Thousands of kids in the past 10 years have had a substandard middle school experience, and thousands more will follow in their footsteps if the district does not go through with the conversion next year. Some ideas for resolving the lingering questions of what to do with Access, Kairos, and DLI programs include less than ideal options such as co-location, split feeders, split programs, building moves, making changes that you know will be temporary, suspending grandfathering, but none of those options is worse than continuing as we are. There are still more K-8s in the rest of the district that need to be converted. The board needs to just make the decisions needed for Roseway Heights and Tubman, no matter how imperfect, so that the conversions can happen next fall as planned, and you can move on to opening middle schools for the rest of the district's underserved students. Thank you.
Max Margolis and Eduardo Bellavanzaran.
Hi, my name is Max Margolis, Margolis. I had planned for 3 minutes, got 2. So I want to thank the board for organizing this listening session. I'm a 5'10" Jewish man with freckles. I was born in Glasgow, Scotland to 2 heterosexual Jewish American citizens. I grew up in Pittsburgh, where my elementary, middle, and high schools were composed of mostly black and Jewish people. I was insecure about having freckles, wearing patches on my pants, my mom's chain smoking, and my sisters dressing me up as a woman. As a Jewish man, I could provide you with an endless list of my problems. I feel compelled to tell you this because throughout my daughter's 4 years in PPS, the administration has been in a curious, not courageous conversation about race, class, equity, with seemingly no regard for education. In your quest to understand diversity, social justice, and gender identity, you've lost sight of the prize, which is getting all of our children in the race to pursue knowledge. I'll spare you the details of my daughter leaving Vestal off of 82nd and going to Roseway Heights, and just suffice it to say it was a very positive change. And all kids in our community deserve that change. Transforming Roseway Heights into a middle school could finally provide our community with access to a quality middle school. However, this boundary change will only succeed if PPS is truly courageous. Talking about race, gender, identity, religion, or inequality is normal and healthy, but it's not courageous. Being courageous is finding your own voice in a world that is only interested in your boundary, your demographic, your money, your sexuality, or your religion. Being courageous means making a decision, sticking to it, and dealing with the consequences. Being courageous is taking responsibility for hypocrisy and owning your mistakes. We're all here because there's been a lack of courage and an abundance of hypocrisy. Okay, and I just want to end with a quote from W.E.B. Du Bois that really hammers home the importance of education. It is always have an element of danger and revolution, of dissatisfaction and discontent. Nevertheless, we men strive to know. PPS students should be discontent, they should be dissatisfied, and there are 47,000 of them waiting for danger and revolution, begging you to please educate them. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eduardo, and I will spend my 2 minutes spelling my last name. So Belaunccaran. I want to thank you for your service and dedication to the education of the children in this beautiful and diverse city before everything. I'm sorry if I speak with a big accent. My English isn't perfect. I don't have the chance that my daughter has to study in a bilingual immersion school. She's 9 and she's perfectly bilingual right now. Thank you. I am here not for tell you what kind of change we need, but for tell you and everybody behind me how fantastic is my community. Because I hear the people talking, they don't want to be in my school and I don't understand why. I drive 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day for bring my kid to the school. If she want to take a bike, we need to take 45 minutes for going in bike to our school. Scott is not my school or my neighborhood. We choose this school because we want my kid have the diversity and another language immersion. If she want to walk, we need to go 1 hour. If my car don't start, we take the bus. And what? That is life, that's right? We know that it will not be easy for everybody, but we need to make sacrifice for have a great and bilingual education for our kid. Several times in these 5 years, we thought to run, to go to the other school and say, oh God, because we are in front of a big problems because it's a miss of equity in Portland Public Schools. And my school is very affected by that. Now we are in front of a great opportunity to have some equity, not only for my kid, but for all these kids. So please be courageous and do it, because we really deserve it. You cannot imagine how great it is for my family and my kid to be with people to all horizons. We have people from Somalia, from Russia, from Vietnam. My kid played with Maya kids.
One last sentence, please.
Yes. That is fantastic. So please go ahead and do it.
Next, we have Sabrina Flamo and Donna Maxey.
Hi, my name's Sabrina Flamo. The last name is F as in Frank. I noticed someone else did that too. Lamoe. I'm the principal at Vestal. And I have some prepared statements, but I'm emotionally torn by what I'm hearing. I think the main message that I have is this process that we use, and I include myself in we because I'm a principal in this district, relies on parents coming out at 6 and 7 o'clock at night when they really should be home with their kids to advocate for their individual school, and it sets our communities against each other. It's upsetting. It's upsetting to me as a principal that was at a school that was able to have a lot of parents show up to be told, you've got to get people to come to this meeting. And I don't think that's the way that we make the best decisions for our kids. I don't think it's a fair burden to put on our families. I don't mind as the principal advocating for my individual school and looking at our whole district, but I really just challenge how equitable our decisions can be made if we are putting the burdens on families. The other piece that I just want to add really quickly about Vestal is an amazing, amazing place. This is my first year there. It is a very diverse, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. And just because the numbers are really small right now, I'm really hopeful that our board makes the decisions based on some other things besides numbers and guarantees that our school community will be firm and solid regardless of numbers. The last thing, we're worried about this thing going off, the last thing is I just can't advocate enough for our middle school students. We have 22 7th graders. That's a really unfair, unequitable setup for disaster. They get 1 7th grade year. Their 7th grade year is with 21 other peers. So they can't wait. We can't wait to make that decision to get them into a middle school.
Good evening. My name is Donna Maxey, M-A-X-E-Y. I have a vested interest in Humboldt School, as well as Rose City Park and at Tubman. My brother was in Humboldt School's first kindergarten class, and by 4th, 5th grade was being bused over to, I can't even remember the name of the school, in Madison District, and spent 3 hours a day being bused. I taught at Rose City Park School, and I also have taught at Humboldt School. I'm a retired teacher from the school district now. This is my first time to testify, so this is very important to me, what I am about to say to you. I also have an investment in Tubman because I was in the first grade class there. So I have a great history with the schools here in Portland. As I like to say, I was educated at the best ghetto schools here in Portland. And I would like to address some of the issues that Kairos is coming up against from a historical point of view. I appreciate the testimony from Prosper Portland. I think it's very important that they try to rectify the damage that has been done to African American families in Portland. And one of the things that was very damaging, I was part of the damage that was done. We lost our home, our church, our community, and my father's business. So when people talk about damage and things, I understand that. I think that Portland Public Schools needs to keep its promise for equity. And as you see, I gave you a brochure. I run a program called Race Talk, so I know a little bit about that. And I would like to make sure that Portland Public Schools keeps its promise to the African American community to educate its children, and Prosper Portland, God bless them, is trying to get back into doing something that is right, because PDC didn't. I know I'm almost done. And I would like to make sure that Kairos gets to stay at Humboldt, and that Portland, for once, keeps its promise to the African American community. Thank you.
Next, we have Paul Hoffman and Tricia Curl.
Good evening. My name is Paul Hoffman, Hoffman. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. And I come as a parent with a child in the neighborhood program at Scott Elementary, as an advocate for our school and for future Scotties whose parents are members of the congregation that I pastor. First, I want to applaud you for the work that you've put forward in the current proposal. I believe it's a step in the right direction toward more equitable schools in North and Northeast Portland Public Schools, specifically those in the Madison cluster. However, I'm concerned it doesn't go far enough. Each week I volunteer in my daughter's first grade class. It's a beautiful picture of ethnic and socioeconomic diversity. However, it's the only section available in the neighborhood program. The class is practically full. The teacher has no assistance to balance the load of the needs of the students for them to succeed academically. And this is the case across all of the grade levels for the neighborhood program at Scott. I'm excited for the future students of Scott having 2 neighborhood sections, but our current students need and deserve 2 sections now. So here's a couple of clarifying questions I'd like to be addressed from the current proposal. Is the provision of 2 neighborhood sections only for the fall of 2018 kindergarten class, or providing those sections across all grade levels starting in the fall of 2018? Current Portland Public School policy allows students to stay and complete the highest grade at that school. How will this policy affect the ability to provide 2 neighborhood schools, 2 neighborhood sections across all grade levels at Scott and other schools in our cluster? How does opening Rose City Park at 100% building utilization fit into the right-sized school goal while leaving other schools in the cluster underutilized and under-enrolled? How does Rose City Park, with only 12% underserved students, fit into the goal of strengthening diversity and improving demographic parity while schools like Scott maintain numbers north of 40% underserved schools? There's an ancient proverb, and I'll close with this, that says, raise a child in the way that they should go, and they won't depart from it, even as they grow old. What this promises is that what we teach our children now and how we raise them to see the world is exactly how they will see it as an adult. We have the opportunity as parents, and you have the opportunities as partners with us in informing these children to shape their future in beautiful ways. We can raise children who can adapt and change, embrace diversity in all its forms, and embrace difficulty
Can you
as
wrap
growth
up, please?
opportunity. And those children can change the world. Or we can raise children who live and embrace the status quo, which leave our world as it is. One path is easy, and one path is difficult. One path is truly progressive, while
I'm
the
sorry,
other
but
simply continues to live in the illusion of being progressive.
So I don't mean to cut people off, it's just we have a lot of people. I want to make sure that, so I'm not
Yeah.
being disrespectful, I just want to make sure that we let everybody, to the
Understand.
extent we can, speak. So thank you, everybody, for trying to be attentive to the 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Tricia Curl, C-U-R-L. I've come tonight just to speak. I am torn and conflicted with this as well. We are in the Beverly Cleary neighborhood of Rose City Park, and I do not I support middle schools being developed, and I do not support the displacement of Kairos as well. Where I am concerned is seeing my neighborhood and my children. I have a 7-year-old and an incoming kindergartner, and a number of friends who are preschool students who don't know about these meetings going on as well, which has been stated. I am concerned as to where our neighborhood will fall. We are happy at Beverly Cleary. Many people are happy where they are. We are also willing to change, but I am hearing some things that are very concerning. I would love to have a neighborhood school as other people do. Our neighborhood school is walkable and builds community. We like our community, and we want to build a strong community. And I would like to ask that you are transparent as to what you are doing. I have many friends and families that are in Access, and I would ask that you, don't want to be pitted against Access as a family, but please find a home also that allows them to have a place that does not displace Kairos and does not displace us from our neighborhood school if we are allowed to return to Rose City Park, which was closed and why we were put into Beverly Cleary 8 years or so ago. I also would like to comment on this rushed plan and the state of the Rose City Park building in general being a dangerous environment for our children, which we are fighting over as well as families. I think that's it. But please be transparent in letting us know where our children will be, and consider that we would like our community school back. I guess my last point is that children are being bused into Access, and then you'll take our neighborhood and bus us to schools farther out. I don't see that as a viable solution financially either.
Next, we have Nick Mathern and Galen Gamble.
My name is Galen Gamble, Gamble, and I'm a Vestal parent and the PTA president. I'd like to thank the chair, Brim Edwards, and the board members for the opportunity to speak this evening. Under the current proposal, Vestal's student body would be reduced to 260 students, which is not sustainable. We're asking the district boundaries to be equitable and support all students. We're also asking for an appropriate middle school for our students. Unfortunately, many of our families couldn't attend this tonight's meeting. Vestal PTA has circulated a petition that parents have signed on to, and I will pass to the board. Again, we appreciate your consideration and hope that you find Vestal's interest at heart.
Good evening. My name is Nick Mathern, M-A-T-H-E-R-N. I'm a parent of a 1st and 4th grader at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School, or K-8 school for the moment. I want to also thank you for the tremendous amount of time that you and countless volunteers have spent over the past several years to work on this process. Clearly, while it has not been a perfect process, it is one that has certainly been the recipient of many, many hours of many people's time and love, and I certainly can appreciate that. I also want to say that I'm both very grateful and also a bit frightened about the opportunity that is in front of me and my family. Grateful because while my children are at King, and we appreciate very much the King community, unfortunately, as we've been a part of that community for a few years, we've seen that the middle school opportunity that the students there have is not an equitable one, and is not one that will prepare them for high school. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to send my children to a robust, well-enrolled, and a very, middle school that has high standards. However, I'm also afraid because I know that the education that my children are receiving at King will not have them on equal footing with the other children in the Tubman cluster. And so I want to ask the board to, as you're making this decision about our school and the larger cluster and the district-wide, to understand that there will be some decisions you'll need to make here that will go outside of simply funding this on a per-pupil allotment, and understand that there are some schools that are going to need additional resources in order for their students to enter on an equal footing as learners as they come into these new middle school environments. So, thank you very much.
Mark Holloway and Heather Kent. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Mark Holloway, Holloway. Thank you, Chair Brim Edwards and board members. I represent Social Venture Partners. We're a business and philanthropy organization here in the community, and I'm here to advocate for the stability of Kairos PDX. I've sat here with you a couple of times for their charter renewal and for the original charter approval of Kairos, and last the charter approval was approved unanimously, and we were here in support of that as well. Unfortunately, what puts Kairos at risk is the instability of their location. And often it's said that charter school kids are different kids, but we know that those kids are PPS kids. Their outcomes are your outcomes. They will go on to a middle school or to a high school, and the successes they're having at Kairos, that we're seeing at Kairos, that you approved at Kairos, are gonna reap rewards down the line. But we know in people's lives that they don't have the very basic need of housing, they can't get to higher level items in their life. So if we don't get to the very basic needs of housing for Kairos, they're never going to be able to get to the next levels of success that we know that they can achieve, that you've invested in them achieving. I had a family of a mom and 3 girls move in with my partner and I a few years ago because they didn't have housing. And those girls found stability, and one of them has gone on to found her own nonprofit that serves people on the margins. She's gone on to Harvard University, and she's running at 19 years old for city council. That never would have happened with an unstable family. And I ask, like you, that you have the opportunity to give Kairos stability in their home and to help those kids have even greater success. It is an equity issue. A lot of people are throwing around the word equity right now, but equity is about investing more in people who have had traditionally less. And we know that Kairos kids have been underserved and had less opportunity than others. And it's your decision to make now about how to invest more deeply in those successes and keep Kairos where they are.
Hello, board. Heather Nelson Kent, NELSONKENT from Access Academy, and I'm here as a parent of students at Access. As Portland Public School parents, we continuously find ourselves waging these pitched battles with each other, fighting over scraps, despite being in an economically stable and growing city. We're in that situation again now as the question of which students to house in Humboldt School, a small building in Northeast Portland, hangs in the balance. The public dialogue over this particular building has seemed to pit two school communities against each other, and we wonder what is to be gained by the district or our larger community in creating an either-or scenario for these two thriving schools. We are advocating for a building. As parents at Access Academy, we're not advocating to move to Humboldt. We are advocating for a building that meets the needs of our unique population, especially after living without a stable home or long-term plan for many years. Since the district began its work to reconfigure boundaries, Access parents have advocated for a stable building assignment, one that is relatively centrally located with room to serve the students who need it. We don't believe achieving this for Access should come at the expense of another community. We're looking to the district leadership and staff and other leaders around the city to work creatively together to find a way to support both of these thriving and much-needed schools. Thank you.
Andrew Breen and Kara Bader.
Hello, I'm Andrew Ream. I pronounce it Bean. I spell it B-E-A-N. Thank you, friends of the board, for your commitment to all of our kids in a very difficult process. I have a kid ready to start school, and when this process is all done, I have no idea if I'll be able to take him to the school just down the hill, a couple blocks from my house. But after attending these sessions, I really don't want to talk about my kid, because I've realized through these sessions that the problems with this proposal are bigger and affect the broader Eastside community as a whole. My new friends at Kairos are screaming. Vestal is adrift without a sustainable population to keep it going. Vernon is completely skipped in this process. Access is shoving out another school. Rose City is full before it even opens. And in case you didn't know it was possible, because I didn't, it's possible to make Sabin and Alameda even less diverse than they are today by restricting the boundaries as this proposal does right now. Ms. Moore, you talked about it in the previous session where you said that the problem with historical grandfathering was something we regretted in doing in the west side. It's going to be an issue on the east side as well. After you made those comments, I just canvassed my neighborhood. 80% of the people in the Broaden catchment area will not be going to the new school because of the grandfathering as proposed in this proposal. You will not get the catchment numbers that are proposed in this as it means, which means the lines are not getting the students in the places where we propose in this model. So the data is suspect behind it. I get it. This is a draft. I'm just asking that we take the time to revisit this draft and fix these errors. In the meantime, open these middle schools. It makes all the sense in the world. Make sure they're safe, of course, please. That gives you the time to balance the feeder population. Make sure your data is accurate, that you're using accurate information to inform this. And most importantly, and we haven't talked about this, it gives parents the time to adjust their lives towards this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kara Bader. It's B-A-D-E-R. I want to thank you very much for hearing our comments and taking the time tonight. I don't envy your task at all. I come before you tonight as a mother and a concerned citizen and a recent grad from PSU's EMPA program, where I had the opportunity to look at Kairos, and so I speak on behalf of Kairos. The reason I chose Kairos for my capstone program is because they are doing something truly unique. They are the only school in Portland that serves 25% or more African American students that are meeting or exceeding the national averages for core competency testing. And I wanted to know why. I wanted to see what Kairos does that isn't being done in other schools. In the last meeting, Ms. Moore commented that Kairos, it's unprecedented to have a charter school have a long-term commitment or building, and I understand that unprecedented may seem risky, and people's point of view on charter schools are kind of up in the air. But I think it's important to look at what they're doing and look at if they're having success. Kairos was started by 5 African American women who were mothers who knew that Oregon and Portland are not serving the unique needs of children of color. And as mothers, they decided that they needed to start a school to better serve their children, and it's working. They bring a very unique combination of culturally responsive learning and compassionate learning to all the children they serve. One of the tenets of their program is to have a safe space for these kids reliably, day after day, to come, unpack whatever they need to unpack, physically or emotionally, and learn, and it's working. So I just ask you to, in the lens of equity, ask yourself, if this was an affluent, predominantly white school, would this be so easy to offer up?
Can you wrap up your comments, please?
Thank you.
Next, we have Roz Willoughby and Steve DeMonte.
Hi, my name is Roz Willoughby, Willoughby. I'm here as a parent of a first grader at Vestal, and I have 2 other young children that will hopefully be attending there shortly after. My concern today is hoping that the middle school's open, most definitely, but just like I'm echoing what has been said earlier, that if we don't change our boundaries, Vestal will be underserved because we'll be under capacity by 100, and we'll lose the programs that have been so amazing in my first graders and as our family, our experience at Vestal. These community dinners that we do every month are quite a thing. If you haven't been, you should definitely come join us. After eating, we get to break up into groups, and I believe there's 5 different languages that we have interpreters for, and we really get to come together as a community, which is something you don't get to do just dropping your kids off before and after school. The diversity that we've experienced so far at Vestal is been such a gift, and I would hate to lose that. The direction it seems that Vestal would be going if the boundaries don't change is to closure, and that would just be a really, really sad thing. So thanks for listening.
Next, we have Eddie Zamborski and Deanna Jewel Town.
Hey there, Eddie Szymborski, Szamborski. I've been volunteering at Kairos for the last year. Thank you for your time. I want to start with a quote from PPS spokesperson Dave Northfield. The district understands that this looks strange for a district emphasizing equity and closing the achievement gap, and Kairos has been successful. We hope that Kairos is successful wherever they are. We understand the implications of gentrification. Saying you understand something is not the same as understanding something. It is clear that the district does not understand that gentrification is but one of the many ways that white supremacy and white power continue to shape the contours of our city and our country. Words are important. Having well-articulated equity plans are important, but merely hoping that Kairos is successful is an insult. To suggest that their success has no relationship to where they are located is doubly insulting. Schools are our most cherished sites of community. To remove Kairos from Humboldt would be yet another instance of the city of Portland tearing at the heart of the city's black community. Addressing Portland's long history of targeted violence and casual indifference towards the city's black community will take far more than words. It will take actions, the use of power to push back against white supremacy in all of its ugly formations and echoes, and for the city to prioritize the perspectives of those most impacted along the way. What looks strange is often just that, strange. This is not a matter of well-intentions being misperceived. This is a matter of PPS not reckoning with the strange violence that our country and city are founded on, a violence that says some are less human due to the color of their skin. Please recognize what you do not understand. Listen to those who do, and I'm really not talking about me. Listen to the other people. I strongly implore that the board take a stance against the continued displacement, disempowerment, and devaluation of black and brown peoples in our city and beyond. Recognize and alleviate the deep irony of your proposal, replacing Kairos, a crucial source of access for children of color and low-income students, with access, a student for high achievers who have a clear path ahead of them for success. Give Kairos the long-term home it deserves in the heart of the community it serves with such compassion, care, and excellence. Thank you very much.
My name is Lisa Moreira, M-O-R-E-I-R-A. I have two sons. One is a future PPS kid starting kindergarten next year, and one is a current PPS kid. My older son attended a neighborhood school for kindergarten and first grade and is now a fourth grader at Kairos PDX Public Charter School. I understand it's that charter part that may lead some of you to believe that Kairos ought to be displaced from the Humboldt School building. I recently had a very brief conversation with Mr. Bailey in which he said that every kid's needs should be met in public school, that there shouldn't be a need for charter schools in PPS. I actually agree with that statement, and I wish it were true. I wish that my son could have been treated without racial bias in his neighborhood school. I wish my concerns as the parent of a black student had been taken seriously in his neighborhood school. I wish he had seen support for teachers of color there. I wish his social, emotional, and cultural needs had been considered there. I wish he felt like he belonged there. I wish I felt like he was going to thrive there. Thankfully, Kairos was an option for him. And it's going to need to be an option until these systemic barriers are truly absent in all our neighborhood schools, until kids who aren't thriving in their neighborhood school environments are considered with compassion and belief and action. I want to remind you that Kairos exists as an option for these kids because you unanimously agreed with its purpose and necessity, for which I am deeply grateful to you. And that your racial equity plan states, the district shall provide every student with equitable access to high quality and culturally relevant instruction, curriculum support, facilities, and other educational resources, even when this means differentiating resources to meet this goal. I ask you to consider what displacing, yet again, a program designed for educating a historically underserved population will mean to this community.
Next, we have Margaret Henshaw and Jesse Irvine Sramek.
I sat down first. Hi, I'm Margaret Henshaw, H-I-N-S-H-A-W. Thank you for hearing our testimonies. I am here tonight to speak in favor of keeping Kairos at the Humboldt School. I've been a supporter of Kairos since its inception as a member of their advisory board. I am a supporter of educational equity and support services for at-risk youth. I'm on the board of directors for POIC Rosemary Anderson and New Avenues for Youth. Kairos PDX has a mission to end the prolific racial achievement gap of Portland's underserved young students of color and are successfully doing so in measurable and sustainable ways. The data has been shared with you in written testimony. As you know, the program's goal is to set the root of inequity and weed it out. Get to the root and weed it out. Portland Public School has stated goals around equity and excellence, both of which are being accomplished by Kairos. Kairos currently serves 150 primarily black Portland Public School students with these proven excellent results. We also have established strong and meaningful relationships with the families that we serve through the Family Connections program. If allowed to stay at Humboldt, Kairos students would feed directly into Tubman, creating a pipeline of students for color to continue their education in the community. Displacing Kairos by giving the Humboldt space to access continues a history of displacing students and families of color. Kairos has a strong and meaningful mission for excellence and equity, and currently in the right location to meet the needs of their students, and they're doing so with great success. Kairos is a successful model of narrowing Portland Public Schools' prolific racial achievement gap. We need Kairos, and we need your support of Kairos and these students by allowing them to continue to thrive at Humboldt School location. Equity is a choice, and equity requires action. Thank you.
Excuse me, before you speak, I just want to ask the group, is there anybody who has their children upstairs in childcare who has not yet spoken? If you could you raise your hand if, so Ms. Houston, I'm going to ask after you speak for the two parents, because the people providing childcare need to go, so after the speaker, that anybody who has children still upstairs, you get to go next, so that, because we're going to lose our childcare upstairs, so.
Good evening. I'm Jessie Irvin Sramek, I-R-V-I-N-E, and Sramek is S-R-A-M-E-K. I'm a teacher at Kairos PDX. I just began my second year with the school, and we've heard many voices tonight advocating for Kairos staying at the Humboldt building, and I think that speaks volumes to the way that we've mobilized and come out here tonight. And it's not just about the Humboldt building, it's about the neighborhood that we're in and the roots that we've already established. We just began our second year, and I can't tell you, I've been a teacher, it's my 7th classroom that I just started. I started with incredible ease and a great sense of optimism. The students in my classroom are brilliant, they're very capable, and they are very connected to the community around the Humboldt building. They know where Jefferson High School is. We played kickball there last year. They get excited every time we walk to the North Portland Library. They know how to build a map from our school to other neighborhood locations. Our tiles hang in the garden. We eat vegetables from the garden that have already grown in our time there. We've established roots. The greatest weapon of oppression, one of the great weapons of oppression, is displacement. Displacing Kairos can be labeled simply as a lack of a legal agreement, but I would say that we are morally obligated to keep Kairos in the neighborhood that it's in. I think that we are morally obligated to start now, because we had in the years past, to continue to invest in this community. It's a powerful, beautiful, and brilliant community. And I really urge you, if you haven't walked those hallways, please come. Please walk those hallways. See the new life that we've breathed into a building that was sat vacant in a really important neighborhood. And see the way that our kids are connected to the community that surrounds that building. Talk to our students. Talk to the teachers. Talk to our staff who are invested their time. Thank you.
My name is Molly Franks, F-R-A-N-K-S, and I speak as a white parent of a mixed-race Kairos kindergartner and as a long-term supporter of Portland Public Schools' efforts to promote racial equity through courageous conversations. Whether we look at history or we look at current events, we have a serious problem with racism and with white supremacy. From Charlottesville, where a white person ran over people with a car to fight to preserve symbols of slavery, to last year in Gresham, where another white person intentionally killed a black man with his car following an argument, we need to be taking white supremacy seriously. These incidents don't come out of nowhere. In fact, they're part of a long history that is very connected to our current situation at Portland Public Schools, and I appreciate that various people have been talking about this history. It may be familiar to you, and I think many white people in Portland are unaware of it. I want us to keep it in our consciousness as we are making these key decisions. State laws making it illegal for black people to settle in Oregon were on the books until 1926. When World War II made manufacturers desperate for laborers, African Americans were grudgingly invited to move here. However, bankers and civic leaders conspired to confine them to the redlined area of North and Northeast Portland called Albina. In spite of blatant hostility and discrimination, African Americans created a thriving community in Albina, and Humboldt School was built in the Albina neighborhood during this time. Sadly, decades of civic disinvestment in this neighborhood's schools, families, and businesses followed. I appreciated Donna Maxey's comments about that, her personal story about that. Following a pattern of city planning that decimated Black communities across the country, Albina was torn apart by the construction of I-5 and the razing of hundreds of houses and businesses to build Memorial Coliseum and Emmanuel Hospital. Since then, Black families have been pushed out by white families moving in. Like many schools serving primarily Black students, Humboldt was deemed a failing school, and PPS closed it in 2012. We all benefit from a school system that serves all students well, and data clearly show that our current system serves white students best and is egregiously failing Black students. Now we are being offered a gift and an opportunity. We have the opportunity to follow the leadership of people of color, to listen to the voices of Black families, and to learn from the wisdom of African American educators about what works for Black kids. I urge you to keep Kairos at Humboldt.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Bill Beamer, B-E-A-M-E-R. I am the partner of Molly Franks. We have a kindergartner at Kairos. Kairos is it's an incredible school community. The energy there, the mission, the family involvement. When we look at indicators of successful students, family involvement is one of the most important things. Kairos is an incredible model, and it's something that a year ago, our child is biracial. My family, I'm originally from the East Coast, from Washington, D.C. Grew up in a very different environment where I had incredible supports. It's difficult when you are a person of color, especially a young person of color. Data shows that children at a very young age, before kindergarten, start to identify race and color and categories. Last year, our daughter said she wanted to be white, and I asked her why she wanted to identify as white, and she said because everyone else is. Kairos gives her a place that affirms her. I've seen this change in her. I've seen this growth and development. This is an opportunity. All families with school-age children want to have schools in their neighborhoods that support them. We want to live in those places. We live in an area where we have a school that is so incredible. I am so fortunate to have that school there and to have it there at this point in her education. I know that work with equity is difficult. When I first moved here, I worked at the African American Health Coalition. Then I worked at Multnomah County Health Department, starting up the Health Equity Initiative. And I was in the county chambers when the Coalition of Communities of Color presented their report in 2009. It showed that the disparities and inequities here were the worst in the region. And that's when the effort for equity came into play. All you need to do is support Kairos. This is an incredible model. PPS can learn from this. We can make this better. Please keep Kairos at Humboldt. Thank you.
Is there anybody else here with children upstairs that needs to testify? From a school that hasn't otherwise already had its voice represented. If not, we'll go back to the other order, and I guess I'm going to ask the board members, are we okay to stay until 8?
Well, we've got DBRAC members here who we promised to meet with at 7:30. And it's past.
So we have three more?
It's past.
We have.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know there was a.
We have 4 more speakers.
4 more speakers. Are they from schools that have not yet been represented?
Kairos.
I'll tell you what. Do you guys want to? Is it the two of you? Do you guys want to go meet with?
Yeah. Why don't we go?
I'm gonna suggest that since there was a previously scheduled meeting that was supposed to be at 7:30, that Director Bailey and Moore go have their meeting. Director Rosen and I will listen to the remaining four people who are signed up to testify. And just as a reminder, since this is videotaped, everyone will have access to it. And also feel free to send us your comments by email.
Can I make my one clarification?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to clarify something I led off saying, and one person said it sounds like this thing is a done deal. The only done deal for me is 2 middle schools. Everything else, we're listening, we're trying different scenarios and all that stuff.
So the done deal of the middle schools next fall, right?
What? Yes, James.
Scott, I just checked in with my co-chair and the members that are here. We are fine with staying here to listen to the last 4 testimony before we have our meeting upstairs.
Okay.
So our next 2 speakers are Chelsea Bunch and Jane Ames.
Good evening. My name is Chelsea Bunch, last name B-U, N as in Nancy, C-H. I have a kindergartner currently at Kairos Elementary. Allowing Kairos to remain at Humboldt School is a matter of equity. I'm an African-American woman who was born and raised right here in North Portland. My parents, the late Jeffrey Brooks and Donna Brooks, were also raised right here in Portland. My 2 African-American boys will be raised here too. Over the years, it has pained me to see my neighborhood, once diverse, quickly gentrify and become the new hip place to be. In a neighborhood that is quickly changing all around me, and in a city and state where the achievement gap for kids of color is grim at best, Kairos PDX Learning Academy has been a gift to us. It has been equally important that a school that is actively and successfully working to close the achievement gap for kids of color has staff and teachers who reflect my children and who nurture my whole child, and is literally located around the corner in my community. Kairos is located in a school building that has suffered amidst gentrification and lack of investment, both in the physical community and in communities of color. How can you all in good conscience be so ready to displace PPS kids, most of whom are from this very community and the majority of whom are of color? You have to understand that I, like many other parents, have had anxiety about where to send my child and how they would begin their educational journey. We didn't want to send our babies to school where they were not reflected in the staff, teachers, and curriculum. We didn't want to send them to schools that have disproportionately high discipline rates for kids of color. We didn't want to send them to schools that weren't getting solid educational outcomes for kids of color. And we wanted our babies to attend schools in their community. Kairos allows us to have the best of everything. A school that is focused on delivering excellent, equitable education to underserved and full of potential, not at-risk children, their families, and their communities, and a school located in a community where most have been displaced. Why would you actively undermine equity work taking place that is having an impact? This displacement is unacceptable and incongruent with equity work, and we will not tolerate actions that appear to be racist at its core. One last thing. Allowing Kairos to remain at Humboldt is a matter of moral and equitable responsibility, and it is a commitment to begin to undo all that has happened in my community. Let's not continue to displace kids of color. Let's not just talk about standing for equity for kids of color. Let's walk in it. Kairos is important to rebuilding the albino community, and it's important to the reopening and a reimagining of Tubman. My Kairos kid is a Portland Public School child.
Jane Ames, A-M-E-S. I am going to hand you my written statement. I don't need to take the full 2 minutes. My main points are that basically they've been said more eloquently than I would say them. We have an issue that is an issue in this country, and it's an issue in our community, and that is that an entire population of students have far too many who do not achieve well, succeed, have good sense of self, and thrive. And that's what every one of us wants as a parent. So that's why I think that making an exception for this charter school is so important, because it isn't a school that started because of some interesting nugget somebody wanted to try. It was tackling what we in our communities throughout the country, but certainly here, measurably so, have not done well. So we need to step up, support them, and one good way to support them is to keep them at Humboldt. We need to be behind them. This is a good way. So, but my written comments are here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last two speakers are Thais Okamura and Gente Shaw.
Does this mean I get 4 minutes? Fortunately not.
Just kidding.
I used to try that too. It didn't work
Didn't
then
work.
either.
My name's Thais Okamura, Okamura, and I have had an ongoing relationship with the community and the school at Humboldt. My two children, who are now in their 40s, both attended all the way through 5th grade. When we were able to get grades 3, 4, and 5 added back, after the community had been broken apart and scattered throughout the greater metropolitan area. I was then, in 1983, hired to be the counselor at Humboldt School and set up the original counseling program before it fell into place in the district mandates, even though the school was very much in need of support. It's not so much the location or the name of the school, it's the fact that it's a part of a community that has been underserved, disrespected, and not following the guidelines of equity, inclusion, and accepting diversity. As a university instructor at Portland State and the Graduate School of Education, I found it very important to include this in every course that I taught. It's lifelong involvement. If the families can't get to the school, how can they be involved in the school? Please keep Kairos at the Humboldt site and maybe even give it a new name. Thank you.
So that concludes the public testimony tonight. As Director Bailey said, I'm going to allow any comments from the board. Yes, Director Moore.
Just really quickly, I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's been a long night. I encourage you to stay on for the DBRAC meeting, which is immediately following. And I just want to, in addition to all of the parents and the community members who appeared, I was pleased to see Prosper Portland and Social Venture Partners come tonight and testify. And I hope that is a harbinger of their greater engagement with Portland Public Schools and their growing interest in supporting all of our schools throughout the district. Many of the Madison School families and students are dealing with the same kinds of issues that have historically hit the Albina neighborhood. I'm hoping that those organizations will pay attention to those families as well, and I look forward to the district to collaborating with those organizations going forward.
Director Rosen, did you have anything you want to say? Director Bailey?
A couple of things. A couple of you commented about the difficulty of connecting with Portland Public Schools when you don't have kids in the district, but you have pre-K kids coming. That's a good point. And at some point, it would be great to meet with some of you and try to figure out a systemic way to increase that communication. Second point is one of the questions we ask when we're thinking about equity is whose voice wasn't here. There was nobody here from the Vietnamese dual language immersion program, which does not have a permanent home. That is part of this equation. So again, when we're thinking about how all this fits together, there's a bunch of moving parts, and yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, I'm wondering why me and my husband, whose children attend Alameda, receive text messages notifying us of these meetings and prompting us to attend, while a number of people had said they didn't know about the meetings. I'm just wondering, is that because my school is prompting me to attend and other schools aren't? And is there a way in which all the schools could be prompted via text message, which is a very immediate way to be notified? You mentioned that no one's here from the Vietnamese dual immersion school. I'm wondering, did they also receive text messages? And if not, why?
It may be that this was more focused on Putnam. I think the mailing. That's a good question. We're just trying to. Is there anybody from SIPA here? Harry?
Why don't we? I think we're going to have to explore that and find out.
So it's my
what's being
understanding
done.
there's. Is that Harry? In the back? Do you want to share at all what the communication plan was, or how we can notify people at future meetings?
We sent emails to every school that families at every school that is involved, and we follow those up with robocalls. I think the text messages might have been a separate thing, but that's definitely something that we can think about doing for the next time. For the meetings that are coming up in October, we have printed postcards that are being mailed to every residence that are in that entire map area that's being affected, because we understand that problem of people who aren't connected with PPS schools not getting notified. It's an expensive and time-consuming prospect, but they will be getting postcards within days that will notify them of the meetings coming up. And so, but that was problematic, not notifying parents with kids that aren't at PPS yet.
Great. Thank you, and we
Thanks.
appreciate all the work that you've done to help support this.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to conclude the meeting. Don't forget, there's a listening session on the 2nd and the 5th.